Good. Is she going to be up on the screen or?
No, quite yet. But
All right, I'll call the public hearing to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing, the consent agenda. Any changes or notes on that? We're all good. I'll accept that as passed. Okay, next we go to the public hearing. I'll ask the clerk to read the notice of public hearing.
this was published in the West Bend Daily News on Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at a meeting of the Washington County Land Use and Planning Committee on Thursday, July 17th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. in room 1019 of the Washington County Government Center, 432 East Washington Street, West Bend, Wisconsin, 53095, at which time there will be heard and considered the public hearing for public comment on Amendment 2025-2 to consider a proposed amendment to the land use plan map of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Washington County 2050. And the proposed ordinance and resolution will be discussed. And this was dated the 5th day of June, 2025.
This public hearing was properly noticed by the clerk's office. I now call this public hearing to order and ask any speakers to come forward and be recognized. And I'll call forward any public that wishes to speak on this topic to come forward and be recognized. Last call. Any public who would like to speak on this topic, please come forward and be recognized. Seeing as all present have been heard, I now call this meeting to close. And I will ask for a motion and a second from the committee. Motion by Supervisor Pridemore, second by Supervisor Brian Krebs. And who will be speaking today? Please come up.
Go.
About the resolution?
Yeah. Yep.
Straight into the resolution and results of the public hearing. Okay.
Okay. So this item, this amendment is for the land use plan for the Washington County Comprehensive Plan. The intention is to update a parcel in the town of Trenton, update the land use category from medium density residential to suburban density residential. Basically, we have two CSMs coming in that will have to be reviewed and approved after this. And in order to approve those, they have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that's kind of why we're doing the amendment here right now before the next step. And in addition, they were also going to request the isolated natural resources areas be changed to suburban density residential, but I'll explain in a little bit why we're only recommending a portion, the medium density change. So as a part of this process, we have Sewer PAC review this amendment, and they submitted their report back to us, basically saying that changing the medium density to suburban density residential is good to go. It's consistent with the regional land use plan, but then changing the isolated natural resource areas to suburban density residential is not consistent, nor is it consistent with our comprehensive plan, because within it we have stated that we will protect isolated natural resource areas and primary environmental corridors. Although that is the case, there is some development that is allowed within isolated natural resource areas, so there's still economic viable use for the sale of the parcel. It still allows for 5-acre single family residential to be built on the parcel. So furthermore, this was properly distributed to all the necessary entities that needs to go out to. We did not receive any comments from any of those entities, nor any public comments. So with that, are there any questions on this amendment?
Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where does our approval fall in the process with the town of Trenton's?
Yes, so the town of Trenton, so the way our comprehensive plan works, the land use plan within it is a patchwork. So the town of Trenton updates their future land, I use future land use and land use plan interchangeably. But they update their land use plan, and then we go ahead and conform to that update as well. So because it's a patchwork. So yep.
So have they updated theirs already then?
They have already updated their land use plan.
So it's passed.
Yep. So it's already passed with the town of Trenton. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Pam.
Yes.
Supervisor Conrath?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to confirm that when this went through the town of Trenton, that there weren't any concerns voiced by the public or citizens?
I would not exactly know. I mean, I did not follow up with them on that process, but they did pass it. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether there's concerns, I'm not too sure. So, but this is only related to the county portion of the amendment, so.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, and there's no one here for the public hearing to come. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? We just move on to the next part. Is that the same? Okay. Okay, so I guess the way I understand it now is that we will be voting to approve the amendment.
So it is a recommendation to the Washington County Board.
Okay.
Yep. So it's a recommendation of approval for the resolution and then the ordinance after that.
So I'm a little confused how they have this, but I see that in the way they have it listed in 2 sections, which is fine, but I think it's pretty much the same thing. So it's not.
It's not.
So Deb, come up here and please set me straight so we get this right.
So how the comprehensive plan works is that ordinances have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So when you're changing the comprehensive plan, the resolution must be adopted first, approved
Okay.
first, and then the ordinance is a separate agenda item, and then that is approved. And once those are approved, then you actually take action on the land division itself, the reason for the amendment,
Okay.
right?
Thank you for clarifying that. Very helpful. Okay, so on the part 3, number 3, part A, land use plan amendment 25-2 of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Washington County 2050. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, well then we move on to 2025 resolution adoption of amendment 25 2025.2 of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Washington County 2050 land use plan map amendment. Can I have a motion and a second? Motion by Supervisor Mary, second by Supervisor Krebs. And go ahead, sir.
Okay. So to start off, this is not a usual land division that we see. Typically, we don't see certified survey maps, but because it's within the shoreline district, it hits our definition of a land division. And before I go into the land division, a little bit of background. So this request is a little bit after the fact. So what had happened, the developer had worked with the town and the city, and then they had communicated with us to kind of get feedback. And ultimately we determined, hey, let us know when you have a final plan in place and then get back to us. And then we'll let you know if this hits our land division ordinance. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. They went through the town, it got approved. It went to the city, it got approved. And because it's CSMs, it went to the Register of Deeds and it got recorded. And then that's when we found out, hey, we should have reviewed this because we have reviewing authority on this, or approving authority. So worked with the county attorney. We reached out to the developer, said, hey, we need you to pause all activities on the parcels that we should have reviewed and approved. And then we reached out to them, and they've been working with us ever since. They paused all activities, and it's been a very fluid partnership. So I just want to kind of end with that. It is after the fact, but they have been working with us along the way, the entire way, to get this reviewed properly and approved. So with that, it's 2 CSMs. Our reviewing authority is technically only for the parcels on the northern side of the lot, or of the parcel. It is the 4 that hit that shoreland zone. Even that one that just has a little nick in it technically hits our ordinance, and then therefore we have to actually formally approve it for it to be legal. So the remaining lots, we told them basically you can go ahead, anything that's outside of the shoreline district, you can go ahead and sell, build on. It's outside of our authority, so therefore we're not going to be reviewing or approving those. The 4 lots that we are reviewing, they average from 1.5 acres to about 2 acres in size. The soil tests were reviewed by the Land Resources Division or the land use inspectors. They said they were all good for private on-site sewer or septic systems. And they've been working with the Land Resources Division to get their stormwater management permit approved / it could also be waived. But that's a process they're working on right now. So with that, let me make sure there isn't anything else. So the conditions we're recommending for the approval of this is that 1, for any type of building activities that occur on these parcels that are within the shoreline district, they get the proper shoreline permits to properly build on those sites. They get the stormwater management permit / waiver if needed, and then the comprehensive plan actually needs to be amendment needs to be formally adopted by the county board. So before they can actually go ahead and sell these sites. So those are the 3 conditions we put into the recommendation section at the end. So with that, any questions?
Questions from the committee? I do have a question. Basically, I guess, how did this happen? Was there a
Yeah.
problem with something in our system?
No.
or-
So typically we don't see CSMs. Very rarely.
Define
we do.
CSM, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry, certified survey map. So you
There
can
we
think of it as if I'm ever using acronyms, call it out. Let me,
I do usually.
yeah. You can think of it as a minor land division. It's not to the level of a preliminary plat, which is kind of like 5, 10 or more parcels. And it's just a smaller land division. So we don't typically see CSMs, and therefore They had reached out, we had communicated with them saying, when you do have a final decision, let us know. And that just never happened. So it was a part on them, and I don't know if we should have properly followed up, but ultimately it was after the fact when we found out about it. So it wasn't really anything to do with us. It's just, it was a unique land division.
I'm all about customer service, and working together. But with that, we're also beholden to the laws. So, I hate seeing things put before my committee in a fashion that, after the fact and that kind of thing. Hinky stuff makes the public go wild, with accusations, backroom deals, that sort of thing. So that's why I'm so diligent on this stuff. It's not that I don't believe in, people make mistakes and forgiveness and all that. I do.
Yep.
But understand that as a public figure and serving on this committee for all of us, we are beholden to the public. So
Yes.
when something like this occurs, it must be made known that,
Mhm.
it's not a good idea to have this occur.
Right.
So, and that's no reflection on
Yep.
you.
Yep.
I'm merely just pointing out the
Yep.
facts around this type of thing for hopefully the general public, so they have an understanding that this is
Yes.
not usual.
No.
So, okay, with that, any more questions? Deb, you got something to put in on it? Please
I do.
do.
Yes, please. I know that you have taken action on 4A, but I don't believe that you've taken action on 4B. Action on 4B needs to happen prior to approval of the actual land division.
Uh, 4B has to happen before 4A?
No.
No, I mean, we're,
4B needs to happen before 4C.
oh yeah, well, we haven't even actually voted on 4A.
Then 4A, 4B, and then 4C.
Oh, yeah. No, we voted on 3A and we need to vote on 4A now and then move on to 4B.
Yes.
So that's where we're at right now. So let's to clarify, possible action. So number 4A, 2025 resolution adoption of amendment 2025.2 of a multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Washington County 2050 County Land Use Plan Map Amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll consider that passed by unanimous vote. Now moving on to 4B, 2025 ordinance amendment 2025.2 land division comprehensive plan 179-9. So let me ask you this, does this have, maybe this is a question for Deb, how does this all relate?
So within the state statute, comprehensive plans, there's certain consistency requirements within comprehensive plans. And in order for us to take action on the land division, the decision needs to be consistent with our comprehensive plan. So we need to amend our comprehensive plan to show the residential densities that this land division is showing, which is that 1.5 to 2 acres in size. We have to amend our comprehensive plan first to show a land use that allows that density and that residential use. Because right now it's allowing a medium density residential use, which is kind of like 10,000 square feet to, I think, about 1/2 acre. So if it isn't amended before the land division, it would have to be denied because it wouldn't be consistent with our comprehensive plan. So did that all make sense? There was kind of a lot of red lines crossing. So
Yeah. So we went roundabout and we got back to where we needed to get. And everybody on the committee here understands what we're doing here. If there's any questions as far as the understanding of this before I actually call for the motions.
Do we have a first and a second?
I was going to do that, but first I want to make sure you know what it is that you're voting on. Okay. But it seems like we have a general consensus of understanding. So now I will ask for a motion and a second in regards to this plan. Motion
Motion for B.
for B. Okay, motion by Supervisor Krebs and seconded by Supervisor Pridemore. All right, questions? Anybody got? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, looks like we have that covered. So now we got C. Land division certified map, 7399 lots 2, 3, 4, and certified map 7398 lot 1. That's all part of this, I take it? And that's the actual map that we've just approved?
Yes, there's two CSMs. It's CSM 7398 and then 7399.
Okay,
And it's the specific lots within it. It should all be in the recommended motion on the report. Yes.
okay, so this requires a second or a separate motion on this? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So now I'll call for a motion on part C. Supervisor Mary seconded. I'll second it myself. There we go. Any questions? Supervisor Krebs.
So this was recorded with the county register of deeds.
Mhm.
What would happen if we don't approve it today? I'm not saying we won't, but
Yeah.
would the county attorney would go back and try to
It-
repeal this?
Yes, we would have to revert it back to its original parcel, which is the tax ID number. Yep.
Basically, along the way, the other approving authorities, City of West Bend, Town of Trenton, it just
Yep.
slipped through the cracks of everyone else.
Yep, and they even amended the CSMs to include the county signature. So there will be a signature block for the county as well too.
So if our approval is granted afterwards, it'll be re-recorded.
It won't be re-record, well, yes, the update, the affidavit for the updates, but this will be contingent still on all those three other items still being approved. So they will have to wait until about August 14th for the county board.
So after that successful county board meeting, at least these lots then would be, their title
Before,
would not be
yep.
clouded in the future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mary?
During all this time, is nothing proceeding with this project?
Yes, I mean, from what we can tell, they've stopped the sale of any of the parcels on the site or on the 4 parcels. From what we could tell, they haven't sold the parcels. So
Yeah, as soon as we found out about the land division and that it had been recorded, as soon as we found out about this, we consulted the county attorney and then let the landowners know to cease the process on any type of sale, marketing or sale of those parcels.
of which the sale of the site would eventually need to go to the Register of Deeds anyway for recording anyway. So at that point, the Register of Deeds should have brought it up to us. So because we notified them as well. Yep.
So this developer made quite a mess.
Yep.
Okay.
But we're trying to correct it. So, yep.
Any more questions as to part C? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
And now Part D, 2025 resolution authorizing the National Resources and Geographic Information Systems Department to update the shoreland zoning maps. Administration, this is a separate thing. This is not related to that. This is a whole different, who's speaking on this one, Deb? or
I
who's-
am. I
Oh,
will.
Jamie are. Okay, so 2025 resolution authorizing the National Resources and Geographic Information Systems Department to update the shoreland zoning maps administratively in situations where the Washington County Board of Supervisors approval is only to confirm the action taken by another body or agency.
That is a long one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We call for a motion on that. I believe because we're taking an action, correct?
Yes, this
Okay.
is a resolution.
Take a motion. Supervisor Krebs and a second. We'll take Supervisor Mary. All right, please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Jamie Ludovic, Chief Community Development Officer. The resolution before you actually was the idea of the county attorney and our land use manager along with our land information officer. So what we were encountering, and we had a couple occurrences where constituents were actually using better data and map information that they had received from either, for example, the DNR for wetlands, whereas our maps still showed that they would be in the wetlands, and they're now saying that the DNR's maps show that they're out. So there's a consistency issue with the timeliness of when other jurisdictions remove themselves and our maps. And so because it's a regulatory function and the county board has adopted our maps as the official items that require regulation, the county attorney was recommending that we pass this resolution that just clarifies that we would be able to amend the maps, even though those other jurisdictions usually govern. So annexations are the other example of this that were happening in real time, where once property is annexed, then they are removed from our regulatory shoreline zoning because they become usually the regulatory authority of the city of Hartford or the city of West Bend. And so that's under law who governs. Our maps were just behind because we weren't updating them regularly. So this resolution proposes that we just make the changes as they occur with the data layers and then report those changes back to the committee and county board at least annually, to be quicker about having updated regulatory maps. So I can try to answer any questions you have them. If you have them, the report was fairly thorough.
All right, any questions from the committee?
Basically a procedural matter is what we're saying, right?
Yes.
Basically procedural.
Yes, there's no policy here. We aren't, adding things to the inventory or removing them where you could have an option. It is strictly to keep them accurate for the constituents.
So this would be, excuse me, Supervisor Conrath, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, and essentially this would kind of lean the process because there's nothing that we could change that the state has changed or updated.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so then Supervisor Krebs.
So it's worded for shoreland zoning maps, but you talked about annexation maps. Is that in situations where annexation has occurred within shoreline zoning districts?
Exactly. So they're annexing property that's in our shoreland zone. So then we remove it from our map because it's no longer our regulatory authority.
Okay. And this would be any maps that are updated, whether federally or at the state level?
Yes, it does happen on occurrence. They were trying to be comprehensive and consistent with how they're handling these. So there has been examples. It does not happen frequently where the state changes the navigability of a stream or a pond. Usually that's done after a private homeowner pays for a more detailed study or something of that nature. And then we would be essentially amending our in this case, it's usually getting less restrictive following the data that they have on their wetland or their stream.
Would there be, does Sewer Pack issue any maps related to this that we would be administratively adopted?
Not that I'm aware of.
Cause I didn't see them listed in the resolution. So I wasn't sure what piece of the puzzle they are of specifically shoreline zoning.
All good.
Yeah.
So basically this is just to make us more efficient and bring us in line without, what was the normal process before? Did they have to bring this to the whole county board or? I mean, what had been done previously?
I believe that Eric Damcott would take resolutions or ordinances amending the shoreline zoning maps.
Okay,
But because it doesn't matter if our map is amended or not, the other jurisdictions map governs, right? So sometimes we would do it, and sometimes, depending on the circumstance, if we weren't very involved, we would just, we wouldn't have to necessarily amend our shoreline zoning map. But then it's not the most current data. And there kind of lies in the problem of our GIS team really wants to just keep our maps as current as possible with all of the relevant information and layers that are coming in.
and it seems to me that with GIS providing services for probably most of our municipalities at this point, or at least a very large number of them, we probably want to have the most accurate maps of anybody. I mean, obviously the state supersedes us and whatnot, but seems like we should want to update it quickly. So in the name of efficiency, Supervisor Mary.
I have a question. Jamie, how would, in a situation like this where we had this developer, how would they know which map is the most current map and which map applies?
Therein lies the question of wanting our maps to hold the most up-to-date navigability information from the state of Wisconsin if we know it's available and we can, so that it's correct in both places. But they would probably call our office and talk to one of our land use employees about what kind of a permit do I need? Where do I find the regulatory authority? And they would try to interpret possibly a website to try to find that information.
They'd have to assume that they went to the right source in the first place.
Correct.
In the case of the last CSM, the surveyor was aware of it. The line is drawn on the map. They were aware of it. It's the title block was missed.
I believe Pam has a question.
Yep. Supervisor Conrath?
Yes, thank you. I just want to validate one more time, and for the public, especially with Lake District's a big part of my supervisory district, that there's nothing that we could dispute at our level. Like you said, the state has jurisdiction over this.
So shoreline zoning, we adopt in our ordinance, which we do have a shoreline zoning ordinance, mostly in line with what's required under state law. There are a few exceptions to that. Our ordinance does reference, the navigability of, that is a role, for example, that the DNR holds, and they keep that inventory updated, and then we regulate around that in terms of where would shoreline zoning be. So to answer your question, no, we can't change the navigability determination of a lake and say we're no longer going to do the shoreline zone of X. The DNR can, though, and private residences navigability can change. It is very rare, but there are some unidentified areas where potentially somebody might challenge what is on the map.
Thank you. I just wanted that also clarified for the public. Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? All right, seeing none, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, moving on to item E. Says Fair Bureau, but I think they mean Farm Bureau, Fair Park Food Expansion. Let me get to it here, please. Bear with me. Jamie, are you speaking on this too?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
This item is also fairly straightforward. So the Washington County Farm Bureau would like to expand its food stand. It's about 351 square foot addition. It's a bump out, and it is to move their hood and kind of open up the space a little bit in their food stand. So they have requested from the county kind of what are the next steps to move forward getting this done. It is a project estimated build of around $80,000. So it does kind of trigger the conversation about what's required and does require this committee's approval is sufficient for them to move forward. What we have typically done with permanent structures being donated to the county, which in this case, that is what this would be. They would be building this expansion and it would become the property of the county. So they have a lease on this facility through AIS, a long-term lease for that food stand with terms and conditions. So we would not be, we don't maintain the building necessarily, but in the long term, it would be our asset that we would obtain. And so therefore the committee approval is required when we accept that type of a donation. A couple notes on this project. We do like to also get approval from the Agricultural Industrial Society. It's not required. It's just more of a, wanting their opinion. So we are kind of looking for a motion to approve their expansion subject to review of the Facilities Department and the Agricultural Industrial Society. So the Facilities Department will look at, and they have had already preliminary conversations about materials, kind of paint color, look and feel. And then utilities is an issue in this case. They need to be relocated. This is a point I do want to make for the public and the committee that we are looking at supporting this project by potentially covering the cost to move those utilities from the funding that we have for the infrastructure project out at the Washington County Fair Park. We are looking at putting together a more robust report for this committee on that debt that was issued and on sort of the obligations and the spend that's happening out of that pot of money for Fair Park improvements out at the conference center. We just put together our contract, so we're going to start reporting out on that so you can see kind of exactly where those dollars are going, because this would be an example where it does fall into Fair Park infrastructure improvements, and therefore that pot of money, this is an eligible expense for that. So that is the plan. So I wanted to mention that and get any feedback that this group might have from that or answer any questions. But really, we're just looking for your motion to approve the Farm Bureau food stand expansion, subject to they also have to get all the permits and the approvals that are required. So it's kind of a high level concept that you don't have any issues with this.
Okay, so before I call for any questions, I'll first call for a motion. Supervisor Mary, seconded by Supervisor Pridemore. And questions for Jamie on this project. Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie, thanks. You covered kind of some of the main questions I had related to who's going to be reviewing colors and stuff like that, which I think is definitely fair that the AIS is involved in kind of helping to maintain what they want to see out there for the look and the cohesiveness of it. Just more of a comment, and I don't expect exact numbers, but the fiscal impact does say minimal cost for the utility, the double utilities, how it's worded. I never see utilities being a minimal fiscal impact when you're relocating them, so I would question that slightly, but assuming it would be less than a couple $1,000s, but utilities usually aren't cheap to move, so I would just point that out as that might not be the case, but overall, I would definitely support, the investment and expansion of the building itself, so.
And they were enough of a cost that the Farm Bureau, when the county brought it forward and said, well, we're gonna need you to do this, this, and this, had concerns about that cost kind of being the differentiator. And that was why I think we thought, the county executives team thought, that we could put some skin into the capital project, especially given the consideration that we happen to have money available for this purpose out there right now. And they're also talking about doing a patio and, a nice improvement out there to that facility. So I hear you on the minimal costs. The chief public works officer was actually going to put together a cost estimate. I just did not have time to get that before this meeting. But that is why we were talking about coming back with a full report on how is this money being spent. It doesn't necessarily require approval, but it is this committee's job to kind of watch that spending and that project as it evolves. And so we're going to kind of start tracking that for you, and in bringing that report back in the next couple months, we will have a number on that.
Sure. Yeah, I just don't want to set the precedent of, if the Farm Bureau is expanding and we're gonna put X number of thousands into assisting with the expansion, that the next stand or the next stand needs it. And it's very convenient that we have a source of funding available to us at this time, but just that it's not the norm.
And we can certainly look at that number and have that discussion with this committee if that's something you guys want to talk more about.
At this time, I'm okay, but unless you feel the number rises to a eyebrow level enough that maybe it should come back.
I would like to clarify and kind of repeat what Ms. Ludwig said for the general public and this committee's. The money that we're talking about here has been allocated and approved by the county board to be spent by the executive out at the Fair Park for this, the projects that were listed in the original resolution. So it is a courtesy, and it's a courtesy that they should extend, because it is, of course, as Ms. Ludwig said, this committee's is supposed to be the watchdog for this. So I think it's important to just kind of reiterate that and make sure everybody's got that. All right. So any other questions? Supervisor Conrath.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I just, Jamie, want to double check. You stated that the maintenance of this would be the accountability of the Farm Bureau, the sustained maintenance?
The Farm Bureau has a lease whereby they maintain the inside of their facility, and typically assist with other upgrades. But it is a building that we own, similar to the Draft Horse Barn and the other buildings. But of all of the organizations that we have out at the Washington County Fair, their lease, their commitment, and their maintenance and care for the facility has been the best that we have out there.
Okay, so the maintenance accountability is the counties on this addition? Or is it the Farm Bureaus?
So right now, the Farm Bureau has a lease with the Agricultural Industrial Society. We have an operating agreement with the Agricultural Industrialist Society, which happens to allow the Farm Bureau to have a long-term lease and agreement. So with our agreement with the Agricultural Industrial Society, we are responsible for the bones of the buildings, if you want to call it that way. And they are responsible for a lot of the day-to-day repair, interior kind of walls in. So I'm not sure, I assume their agreement is similar. I would think that roof repairs, things of that nature, have been a collaborative partnership in the past. Again, this building is only, one of you might know better than I, but the entire grounds is only 25 years old. So I just don't know that we really got into needs major repair yet. So conceivably, there could be a future maintenance cost that ultimately falls back onto the county.
All right, thank you. So it's more of a collaboration.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, typically, in commercial leasing, which basically that's what this is. So it's like, just like the building that I'm in with my office, my company. Commercial lease, gives us the space, but that lease ensures that we have to take care of all the fixtures and everything in it. So they provide the exterior of the building, and that's about it. So that's kind of the agreement here, more or less. And being that it's a steel structure wrapped in steel and covered in steel, I'm pretty sure that's going to probably be a while before anything might go on with that building. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, all signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. We will move on to our discussion for Heritage Trails Park Usage Report. And I'm sure, Jamie, you got that one.
Yes, I do. Thank you. The Budget Policy and Analytics Department prepared the report in your packet at our request heading into the budget. We have a difficult the Parks Enterprise, along with the rest of the county, has a difficult budget in front of us for a variety of reasons. Costs are going up. The wedding industry and park industry in general, all of our revenue streams are tracking and projecting in 2025 well below 2024. We think that might be a symptom of the economy or just kind of the tightening that we're seeing in general. And so we're looking to accurately reflect that in 2026. We are not looking at any park rate increases in our enterprise budget for the user fees, or the general annual fees. The wedding venues and houses are an exception to that, because we generally, those are market driven kind of prices that we follow. However, the one exception, and that was the county executive noting that he does not have any interest in raising the daily entrance fee or the annual fee. This biennium, we did raise it. Last biennium, if you recall, to $7 for a daily entrance. The exception to that was potentially looking specifically at a mountain bike pass or drilling into kind of the more specialty use of those, out of state or residents coming in for that specialty park. So we did have this report prepared in addition to some data we're looking at as a lever, for lack of a better way to say it. That said, we have talked a little bit with Metro mountain bikers and are reluctant to necessarily make a recommendation to change the fee model at Heritage Trails without kind of the partnership and the support that Metro West has. We have had a collaborative effort out there. They have been volunteering many, many hours to not only build but maintain those trails. Their cost center is doing well, as you can see if you've reviewed the report. They are seeing increased usage, and their riders see that kind of coming back. So we had one discussion about whether or not this is something we were going to be drilling into or taking a look at. But we did think it was enough of an option that we wanted to do some due diligence. We're doing a background data report to you today. We also have looked at numbers in terms of what could be generated or what might be an option for a lever. Mostly if we were looking at a situation where we would be wanting to, with Metro, increase any sort of funding. We do not have any funding available to be increasing service levels or providing additional funding support to other entities. And so we wanted to, rather than just say, well, sorry, there is no money, we did talk to them about, we have a lever. If you want to pull it, we can talk about, what that does for you, what that does for us, how that might work, and what that situation is. So those are the kind of the conversations that we're having in the background. But as I mentioned, at this point, we are not recommending anything. We are just wanted to provide kind of an overview of the data, the growth, see what opinions, if any, the committee had to offer on the topic, kind of heading into the budget we're building right now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the data if I can, or just in general about the mountain bike trail usage.
Okay, Supervisor Pridemore.
I was wondering, is there a reason why there's such a decrease in 2025, the year to date, compared to the other one in 2024?
Yeah, so I think it's probably two things. 2025, and we know this because we're working really hard right now on our projections for 26 and 27. Is tracking behind 2024. So weather was a little bit different and the economy was a little bit different. So we think those might be factors. But the other thing happening at Heritage Trails, which may or may not be directly reflected here, is if people come for a daily for the new exciting thing, right? They tend to do that. So that's a factor. But also they may purchase annuals. Right? So if you were a rider from Waukesha and early in the season, you went last year, maybe you paid a daily fee at the end of the year, and then now you've been converted to a more regular rider. So the combination of those four things we think are specifically driving that, but that wouldn't account for the camera recorded exits. That's, 2024 year to date, we had 7,839 exits, right? So that's actually number of cars, whether or not you're an annual or
Okay.
daily. So you can see just number of cars is down, which means the traffic and the usage of the park is down in 25 compared to 24. So those are the things we're looking at, and also related to kind of the revenue we can expect there going into the budget. We're seeing that across all of the parks.
Any other questions or comments? Supervisor Mary?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting and just an observation that our Flatlander friends from the south tend to be using it more than we are now. With the Illinois has almost doubled in the last year and has far surpassed the Wisconsin people who are participating.
Well, again, that's the daily passes.
Right.
So that could also be reflectant of visitors versus more frequent riders.
And I would guess you could put a concession stand out there, it'd probably be a great profit center. Because it's more than likely those people are getting more than one or two people in a vehicle. They're bringing a carload up and putting their bikes on the top or whatever. But I think that's interesting that how that has grown phenomenally in terms of people coming from out of the state to come up here to use the trails.
Supervisor Krebs?
I'll ask comment that there's more people from the south than local users, but the map that I'm looking at, or the bar graph, it says Wisconsin residents are at 94% roughly in 2023 of the uses. We're only looking at like the very tip of the bar graph, how I understand it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, so because
It's daily.
so
Daily.
the uses include people who have annual passes. So for example, if I have an annual pass and I go every single day, I would hit 365 in and outs.
But of daily passes, Wisconsin plates are still 90+%. Reading that right?
Are you
I'm
on?
looking
Yeah,
at
what are you
this
looking at?
map, right?
I'm looking at page 36 of 37.
Yep, the colorful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you take like the blue, top of the blue line, which is Wisconsin, go all the way to the left,
Yeah.
that says 93, 94% roughly.
But
the plates.
Illinois is a lot higher.
Yes, it's 100. The number is 170 out of about 3,000.
So if you could then respond or go a little bit deeper into the lever that you're talking about of like a mountain bike pass, what is that, or how would you enforce that? Because that park is more than mountain biking.
Yeah, so we floated a couple ideas. One is just changing the daily pass rate at Heritage Trails to a much, to like say $15 or $20 a day for a carload. With the idea of that would have two consequences. It would switch people who go maybe 1, 2, or 3 times from daily to annual. So we would expect that most of our local people would potentially convert to an annual membership. And you would really just be then hitting those daily visitors from further away who would maybe just pay the daily because they're only coming for the weekend. And so it doesn't make sense, still doesn't make sense to pay the $50 non-resident membership fee because they wouldn't hit that yet. We've talked about doing the mountain bike pass for daily and annual users. We've talked about the idea that potentially the disc golfers are likely purchasing annuals because they are likely more local in nature if they're coming out to disc golf and more or walking into the park. And so they wouldn't necessarily really need to know if there was a mountain bike pass. We also talked about making it separate completely. There's some logistical challenges with that. We're also kind of trying to dive into the consequences of doing that with regards to just pricing out mountain bikers or discouraging the build or the activity. Right, which is why there's a lot of factors that are kind of going into the conversation about how would you do it, what would you do it, and we didn't get we got enough of a response from the Metro mountain bikers of, well, they had some questions about whether or not that would be in the park's best interest. And so we really aren't, I'm hoping that we're just still kind of diving into this, watching, tracking if the users are going to go down, if they're going to go up. There is still funding challenges in general with the continued build of those trails and the ongoing maintenance. And so we're also trying to be a partner in how do we help solve those, but noting that we don't have property tax dollars, nor do we have excess dollars from our park maintenance really to just apply to this. So we're toying with that conversation and how we can do more events or more fundraisers. But I do think I mean, you guys were out there, so you understand it's a lot.
I feel like if you raise the rates, the daily rates just at that park, you're really making that park exclusively, essentially a mountain biking park. There would be other activities there, but the rates are raised there for the mountain bikers, so everyone else is kind of punished by that. Do you have any data, or have you looked at what the out-of-state plates at other parks are? Because if it's real, I think from my feelings, at least the simplest first round of ways to really target the mountain biking aspect of it would be out-of-state plates pay a higher rate than Wisconsin resident plates. Whether both daily and or annual passes. Assuming other parks are pretty low on out-of-state plates. Other than probably maybe where there's wedding venues, that could be, but aren't those not subject to daily rates anyways?
The weddings would not be. Glacier Hills probably, we did do some analysis on Glacier Hills because it is a regional destination with the cabins. So there would be some there, but that's an interesting comment because when we started the fees, we did not do a daily resident and a daily non-resident, but it was something that was contemplated.
I think it's harder to separate residents if we're trying to talk Washington County versus like Waukesha. But so if we keep it as simple as Wisconsin versus other residents, I think that's a lot easier to enforce.
The license plate doesn't tell you much, other than the state.
Well, other states, they do,
Right.
where you register your tag is shown on your plate, but Wisconsin's not.
Yeah.
I think, and I would support if we're trying to look for some revenue increases, starting at Wisconsin residents versus non-residents. Looking at the numbers, it's not a huge fundraiser, if you want to call it that, revenue source, but it would definitely be an easy, I'm assuming our camera software, that's easy enough to implement it where they could track, or that can identify Wisconsin plates versus others. And create a two-tiered system at that level. Whether that increased level is earmarked specifically for Metro though, or just towards the parks in general, that's a whole different conversation. But,
You're gonna step all over my Kool-Aid, aren't you? I was just gonna go
that's fine. I would be interested in looking at out-of-state plates at all parks to start with, just see what those larger numbers are and how that correlates specifically then towards just the Heritage Trail out-of-state plates. So.
Supervisor Mary?
Yeah, in my comment prior, I mentioned on a prime place for concession stands. Have we been approached by any food trucks to locate themselves there?
So they do go out there for special events right now. Metro is interested in running electricity through the park, or having electricity run through the park so that they can do more things out there. What our response to that was very similar to the thought process that you're having right now about concession stands and RVs. We're doing some special events out there with RVs. However, overnight changes would require us to look at our park zoning more comprehensively and, talk to the town of Polk. Is we are submitting heritage trails to the University of Wisconsin for a student project to do more of a park layout plan. So this is the Masters of Planning program students to listen to the proposal that Metro has given us about where they want to put kind of electricity boxes and kind of the costs of those, and stack that against not only the feedback we got during our Heritage Trails trail plan, which people were talking about, we would like a restroom, or we would like water or picnic tables, but to also consider the other users and kind of the implications for the park of where might the best place for a food truck or a concession stand be to locate, so that we can then take a look at, in the past, we have done kind of RFPs. The biggest example of success we have on that is the Tap Yard at Ackerman's Grove. We actually did an open call for a beer garden in that location, or somebody to come in and operate something there or do more regular type activity. So we are trying to facilitate a way to have that conversation with Metro in a way that's thoughtful and accurately maybe looks at also what this committee thinks about, is this a plan? Because with the trail plan, we planned the trails, but we really did not talk a lot about concession stands or the location of the electricity or the location of a band or how that fits into where they are. And so we are a little bit reluctant to just run to spend money without being thoughtful about where we're putting this stuff and what it looks like. So that's kind of the status of that conversation related to how do we generate more funding and get those events and electricity and those types of things out there to be more consistent.
I was thinking in terms of food trucks, they tend to be self-contained
Mhm.
with generators and so
Yep.
on, so electricity would not be a situation, but I'm just wondering if we have been approached that somebody would wants to come out and run a food truck. That's why I mentioned the out-of-state people.
Yep.
They can't just go home for lunch and come back. They're gonna commit for a day-long event, so at some point in time, they're gonna want some food and beverage.
Yep, and we do have a food trucks that come out there for lots of special events or special rides or days, but nothing on a permanent basis where we're collecting any sort of revenue.
Thank you.
Is there any
Supervisor Krebs?
county code, or do we have any parks rules in regards to who can operate businesses on county parkland, like, because a food truck's a for business venture. Are they allowed to just pull up and
We,
do that?
we don't, we generally require special event forms or contracts or authorization from our department. So for any, it could be any business, let's just say it's selling bikes or, you know, a pop-up person walking around selling glow sticks or whatever it would be. We require approval by the department, depending on what it is, potentially the code, to do that. We have this example happening with Gaydon County Park where we're transitioning to the entrance fee. And there is a business that uses that park to operate with drop off and pickups. And so we are starting to have that conversation about what does that look like to really operate within our parks now that it's a fee-based system. So when the parks are free, I think you get a little bit more of that where people will, you know, come, and photographers is another example. We usually require them to pay our entrance fee, or a lot of the parks do permit different types of businesses that might come in and use the parks and facilities. I don't know if that answers your question, but the short answer is we would not want to allow a food truck to go out there and park all the time without approval.
Well, but what's stopping them, or how is that being controlled though? You know, if a food truck buys an annual daily or annual pass, are we going out there and monitoring the parking lots?
I think it is, there is a park
Or if-
rule in our
Or if
code.
there's a complaint, is the sheriff's department citing or enforcing anything? You know, it might not be a problem today, but in the future, if there's 5 food trucks out there all of a sudden, you know, and if we're looking for revenue.
Looking at our person who enacted our park zoning behind us, but let me get back to you on that, and we can report back on kind of business rules.
To look into just to make sure we're on. It's better to sometimes it's better to get in front of it than try to react to it. Not
Okay.
that I want, not a proponent of more rules or regulations, please let that be known.
But it needs to be controlled.
I want to get in on some of this conversation too here. Heritage Trails, is very unique among our parks. It's obviously the park that's really kind of driving a lot of our success. I don't agree that I necessarily would care to go after just out of state. But I do think that we might want to figure out a way to carve out Heritage Hills specifically for some type of enhanced revenue. But I think there's also a cell in there that we can carve that out and use it specifically for Heritage Hills. You know what I mean? So that, you know, if it can be earmarked not to go to the general fund, but to go for, you know, that park specifically, I'd like to see a little bit of thought or investigation into how that might look. You know, Heritage Hills, and we're talking about the increase, not the annual pass or the, you know, the day passes and stuff like that. Maybe look at anybody who's getting a day pass is probably not a hiker, is probably not a disc golfer. That's probably a mountain biker, if that's, and usually from out of state. So I think it's more your annual pass is going to be your disc golfer, and your hiker, the person that goes over there all the time and just walks around or whatever. But the mountain bikers are a lot of daily passes that might come out once or twice a year. And so they just buy daily because it makes more sense. So an increase in the daily fee, and even just saying, hey, look, you know, yes, the daily fee is increased a little bit, but still $20 for a carload of people would be a great value. I mean, where else are you going to take your family and get that kind of value? And even the selling point of it is that these fees will remain with Heritage Trails and will work to improve the trails. This is just my thought on how we might address this a little bit. Supervisor Conrath, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have some concerns about earmarking money, say, generated from one park just for that park. We've kind of gone through that thought process with Ackerman's Grove. And, constituents around that area have actually made that suggestion too for the money that Ackerman's Grove generates from the beer garden. Um, so we need to be a little careful with that and setting that precedent and those discussions.
Yeah, and I certainly can respect that, but the reason why I would carve it out as being different is that there wasn't a substantial amount for making Ackerman's Grove have the beer gardens and all the rest of that, whereas the trails require an incredible amount of money to build and maintain and generate new stuff, which is what brings the people. And even Ackerman's Grove's best month doesn't compete with some of Heritage Trail's weekends. So, I think that's a really big difference there. Is the outlay for Heritage Trails, the bike trails in particularly, is a lot greater than what's going on at Ackerman's Grove. So that's why I presented it that way. I normally wouldn't want to earmark it either because we want a shared revenue kind of thing. And I totally agree with that. But I think the question here was specifically with Heritage Trails is how do we move these trails forward? How do we get these? There's a lot of bike trails that we have in our plan, and really no way to finance that. I mean, the Heritage Mountain Bikers is obvious, or the mountain bikers, Metro Mountain Bikers are obviously taking donations and volunteers and stuff like that. But they are under a strain. I mean, and I'm well aware of this, haven't spoken to them, that it's a very difficult thing to do. And we also are kind of looking at it like, well, we want to maintain this partnership. We think it's really good for our park system as a whole. But going forward, we do have to find new ways to get those mountain bike trails built to develop that park more. I do believe there's so much more potential at Heritage Trails than there is at any of our other parks really at this point in time. Now that might change. Glacier Hills is certainly another place that has a lot of potential. But right now, the one that's moving the goalpost the most is Heritage Trails, and particularly it's the Metro Mountain Bikers and the mountain bike trails. So I think it would really behoove us to try and find a way to monetize and capitalize on that in order to improve those trails. And then, you get to a point where they're providing, much like the golf course, a very nice, tidy sum of money to all the park systems. So, anybody else have comments on this? All right. Well, Jamie, I hope that gives you at least a couple ideas. You with us?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I thought maybe you weren't done.
No. Yeah, so I hope that gives you a couple ideas and hopefully helps. And I hope that maybe Metro Mountain Bikers gets an opportunity to listen to this video and see some of the things we're kicking around. To know that we definitely support them in their mission and what they're about. And we certainly want them as our partner. So I think that's very important to state. Okay, with that concludes our business. Our next meeting date will be August 21st, 2020.